All right, it's the inauguration of the
singer.
Shir.
My wife was telling me.
I don't know if it's going to go through. As of right now, we're waiting for Meir. Hopefully, it'll be after Meir for now, but it's Hanukkah, so a little bit of interesting schedule. So, it says in the Medrash, not even in Gemara, that when Shir HaShirim was given, it was like the greatest joy of Torah. It was like Matan Torah. It was the pinnacle of Torah. And really, when you read Shir HaShirim, there's so much going on underneath the surface that you can't really understand it without a commentary. Art Scroll, when they translated Shir HaShirim, they actually put into their Tanakh the commentary of Rashi on Shir HaShirim as the translation, and on the bottom they have the translation of the actual words of Shir HaShirim, because to read Shir HaShirim without a commentary is virtually impossible. And the reason why is because when you look at Shir HaShirim at face value, it seems to be a love song. It seems to be poetry about love, about marriages, about relationships, but ultimately Shir HaShirim is so much more than that, and it's an expression of the relationship between Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we read a pasuk in Shir HaShirim, when Chassidus looks at a pasuk in Shir HaShirim, there's a completely different outlook. There's the old joke that a bunch of Bachrim were spending Shabbos in a far-out place, and there was a shul there, it was a Friday shul, so they walked in on Friday afternoon, and they heard they were learning Shir HaShirim, as is the custom in Sephardi congregations. So one Bacher asked his friend, what's going on? What are they reading? So it says, it seems like they're reading off Dibra Maskels of Maimarim. So many Dibra Maskels of Maimarim from Shir HaShirim, and it starts with, in Likutei Torah, you have Shir HaShirim from the Alter Rebbe, and it's a whole sefer in Likutei Torah. So without further ado, let's get into it. Focus on the beautiful relationship of Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, very much personified by the Alter Rebbe's relationship with Hashem. So, Shir HaShirim Ashal Shlomi, Yishakeni Nishkispiu Kitivim Deidachum Yoyim. The Song of Songs to Shlomi Melech, kiss me with the kisses of your mouth, because my beloved is greater than wine. So, the Alter Rebbe explains, it's known that Hashem is called a Chasan, and Knesset Yisrael is called Kala, the bride. They're called this because of the fact that there is a drawing and a sustenance of Torah to Yidden. As the Chachamim say, it says in another pasuk in Shir HaShirim, the joy that you have B'yem Chasanasi refers to Matan Torah. It's like the Chasana of Yidden and Hashem. That is why it says that someone called so anyone that gladdens Chasan, he merits to the Torah which was given with 5 kelis. The reason for this is ki chasan chavas darga. Chasan is from the language of chavas darga. In the Gemara actually says noches darga. I don't know where the language of chavas darga comes from. But chasan is the lashon chavas darga, that it means to descend the level. That is to say, it is a descent and a drawing of Irei and Seif Baruch Hu to be enclosed, to be invested in the Torah. So this is all why Hashem is called a Chasan. Just because Hashem is a Chasan doesn't mean that Yidden are the Kala. Now we're going to explain why Yidden are the Kala. Knesset Yisrael is the source of souls of Yidden. And this, similarly, every spark of a Jewish soul is in the level of Kala. Why? Because a Kala has 2 pirushim. Literally, we translate it as a bride. But the origin of the word, there's 2 origins. Ha'alef, Miloshin Kilyan. Shemachala Mavala Hakil. Lashon Kala. The first one is from the Lashon of Kilyan, of being finished, of being completely destroyed in a sense. And that everything is completely consumed. That's the word, consumed. It's completely consumed. Lashon Kala. Like it says, Kala She'eri. This is the pasuk that we say the Alter Rebbe, he would quote when he would go into Dveikus, he would roll under the table, he would say, Kala She'eri Levavi, Tur Levavi V'chalki Alekim Le'elam. That my flesh is consumed. The Targum Yonasan is Shteitza Gushmi, and Targum Yonasan Ben Uziel, he translates it as Shteitza Gushmi, that my physicality is consumed. The hand of Lashon Kilyan, the Lashon of Kilyan. V'chein v'Yeshaya Parak Zayin Pasuk Dalid v'chach Gamkein b'chal v'patach yishlemer apirish Gamkein al derech zeh v'chein v'zer parshas achrei al pasuk ki kalase he shetzaisa. So just to give an interesting note over here, it says, the Alter Rebbe says, in a sense, ki Yehuda v'ed l'kra. He says, first, the Targum Yonasan Ben Uziel says the Shteitza Gushmi about this pasuk. And then he says also, by the way, this lashon is used directly in a pasuk in Yeshaya. Yukataina, what's going on over here is that you can give maybe a little bit of a beer. It says that when Yonasan ben Uziel, who wrote the Targum Yonasan, when he would learn, it says that birds that would fly on top of him would get burnt from the passion of his learning. So Yukataina, maybe that is an extra special thing. Yonasan ben Uziel, he didn't just teach it, he actually lived it. Pasuk in Yeshaya is a limud. It's the way that the pasuk is phrased. But Yonasan ben Uziel and Taka lived the idea of the fire, the consummation from his connection to Hashem. But anyhow, I digress. So you have the lashon in Yonasan ben Uziel, you have the pasuk, you have the lashon in the pasuk in Yeshaya, and you could also say kal with the patach, which we're about to get into a little bit at some point. So kal with the patach also has a certain element of consummation, being consumed. That is to say, although it's a good pun when you're talking about the idea of a kala. Anyhow, to continue, Himilas kala, he shem davar hameir al ha'pu'ula. The word kala, it's the name of something that refers to an action. Kamei raka zaka, raka zaka daka. That it is thin, it is pure, it is soft, it's pure, it's thin. It's called kala because it is mechala. V'chein isa b'raves shenaskalo. There's also a lashon that comes up in Rishis Rava shenaskalo. So these are all the language of kala, that it means killian, that it means to be consumed. The second is from a language of my soul yearns in Tehillim Parak Dalet. This is the yearning of a soul, to cleave to and to be included in the light of Hashem. As Targum Yonasan translates over there, that my soul it desires. It's a language of desire. Like it says in Bereshis, that your desire will be for your husband, and the translation of Teshukasech is Tiavosech. It will be your desire, your title. Now that we've covered what kala means, we also said what chasa means. So we know that Hashem is the chasa, and Hashem is Melashon Chaver Starker, that He descends the level to be and safe is invested in Torah. And we know that kala is Melashon Kolsa. It's Melashon. We say that kala is Melashon Mechala, that it's to be consumed, and it's also Melashon Kolsa, that it has a yearning. So now we need to understand, how does this actually relate to us a little bit? The concept is in Kriyas Shema you have two levels of Mesiras Nefesh. The first level in Kriyas Shema is to give over your soul with Echad. When you say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, you're supposed to give your soul. And we're going to elaborate on this. That you should love Hashem with all your soul. And the pirish that's given is that to contemplate that even if Hashem takes our soul, we still love Hashem. Love and Yanim V'Hafesh. You need to understand the concept that they represent and what is the difference between these two concepts. Both of them are referring to love. You need to give your soul over to Hashem, and we need to understand what is the taka that's the difference between these two kinds of love. We also need to understand how can you taka love Hashem with all your heart. So now you might think when you say how can you love Hashem with all your heart, okay, it's a double question. How are you able to love Hashem? The Alter is coming from a different point of view. He's saying after you love Hashem with Echad. About love, it says in the end of Parshat Zavim that you should love Hashem because He is your life. Love in general is something that a person has for themselves, and the way that you love someone else is that you think about how they relate to you. Your brother you love, he's your brother. Your father you love, he's your father. Your son, your wife, your daughter, everyone you love because of the relation to you. You love Hashem. Hashem is our life. When you love Hashem, it's not like you're loving something else. There's a famous idea. Someone came to the Rebbe and he said, I don't believe in God. So the Rebbe said, don't worry, the same God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. It's a question to love Hashem. How could you love Hashem when you don't appreciate that Hashem is Hu Chayecha? But at the end of Parshat Tzavim, Taka says, we love Hashem, Ki Hu Chayecha. He is our life. It's our life. He is our vitality. He is our sustenance. He's everything to us. So, it makes sense. But Mesiras Nefesh is a step even higher than that. That you throw away your life. It's being completely nullified to in your very existence. So you have the level of Vayalakin or Vayachad, and you're supposed to contemplate that you give your life, you give your soul. If that's the case, after you've nullified yourself to the point that you don't just love Hashem because He's your life. You love Hashem with everything, throwing away your life. So after you have this Mesiras Nefesh to Echad, how is the Shaykh? How can you then go down to a level and say, I'm going to love Hashem? How am I going to love Hashem? with all my heart, even with all your soul, and by the way, when I was a kid, I always had the question, says even with all of your money, you're supposed to love Hashem with all your money. I say after you love Hashem with all of your heart, and after you love Hashem with all of your soul, you're going to love Hashem with money. But then I got a little bit older and I realized it's a little bit hard to say Mesiras Nefesh is one thing. To love Hashem with everything you have to give everything, it really squeezes you. There's a B'chal story. There were two peasants. They were talking about how much they love the Zar, and so one peasant said, if I had 100 farms, I would donate 50 of them to the Zar. Well, the other peasant said, yeah, if I had 40 farms, I would donate 20 of them, and so on and so forth, until they got down. One peasant said, if I had 10 cows, I would donate 5 of them to the Zar. Then the other peasant said, okay, yeah, I hear. I said, well, what if you had 8 cows, you wouldn't donate 4 of them to the Zar? He said, yeah, but I have 8 cows. So when you taka there, it's a little bit harder. But the point is, over here, it's in a sense a reverse. We're saying, Hashem, we love you with everything. We'll throw away our life. We'll throw away our soul. Just to yearn to Hashem, we have no mitzias. And then we come and we say, you have to, yeah, taka, by the way, I'm me, and I have my relationship with Hashem, and I love Hashem in this way, and in that way, and in the other way. So how taka does it come? How could you have the love of Mesiras Nefesh that you have, Limsa Nafshi V'Echad, and then you come to Yesh B'Shayir? So the Alter Rebbe continues, and he says, V'hinei, ki inyan ha'v'china ha'alef limser nafshi b'echad hu mecham Shema Yisrael. The concept of giving away your soul with echad is because it says Shema Yisrael. What's Shema Yisrael? Shema miloshin Havana. Shema is the language of Havana. There's 2 ways you can understand Shema. It means literally either to herin or to herin, that you listen or that you understand. Shehi espoiner nos. It's the contemplation in the greatness of Ein Sof. How Hashem is Echad. The same way that He was before He created the world. And there's no difference, there's no distinction between Hashem before He created the universe and Hashem now. As it says in the Pasuk, I am Hashem, I didn't change. And we also say in davening, it's quote from the Midrash, if I'm not mistaken, that you are He, that you were before the world. And we continue that we say that you're also now after you've created the world. And I am the first and I am the last, and besides from me there's no power. Pirush Elikim, the explanation of Elikim, the Chesidish Pshat of Elikim, Hamayim Master, it's the concealment that covers before Hashem. Because before Hashem, you can't say that there's anything actually concealing before Hashem. Because everything before Hashem is like it doesn't exist. And you says that you shouldn't literally means you shouldn't desecrate my name. But the day the Alter Rebbe is giving is that you shouldn't make a mocking cholu. You shouldn't say that Chas v'Shalom is like something, a hollow before Hashem, something that doesn't exist, included in Hashem Chas v'Shalom. And therefore, all desires, all sense of self, and everything that a person considers for themselves, everything is nullified before Hashem. This is the idea of killian, that you're destroying the idea that you're doing things for yourself, you're doing things on your own behalf. That you're nullifying all of your will. You're nullifying all of your will, so that you should have no will besides for the will for Hashem. This is the concept of Kol She'eri Levavi that we mentioned before. As Yonasan and Ezekiel translated, that you destroy the flesh. When she calls it the Zera, Pashas Achre and Al, she says the Alma, he handled Kilian Kol Eretenes, and this is what we quoted from the Zera and Pashas Achre. It's the destroying of the world, but it's the destroying of all of the desires that exist for the world. We should have only desires left for Hashem. As is explained in another place on the Pasuk of Kiseitze, that the point of the innermost point of the heart should rise and be included in Ein Sof. And this is not only from Olam Hazeh that we should say, oh Hashem, we're throwing away all of our desires for Olam Hazeh, but also the Gan Eden attacking the Gan Eden Elyon. This is the famous line that the Alter Rebbe was wanting to say, that there should be no other desire for Hashem other than this. As in, there should be no other desire other than for Hashem. This should be the only desire that's left. So that's the first level. of destroying, of the Kala Miloshin Killian. The second level is from Loshin of Kolsa Nafshi. The soul is yearning. She Loshin Shukha Va'ava. It's the language of Shukha and Ava, yearning, cleaving for Hashem. It's the level of nullifying the self. That a person is actually something. It's not that you're completely destroying the yesh, like in the first level. Second level is that I am the person that I want. But you take all of your desires and you say, I'm going to nullify the self that exists. I'm going to make that null, and I'm going to be included and nullify Hashem. That's why we make an interposition, we make an interruption between the two levels of Mesiras Nefesh. We say Shema Yisrael, just to kind of recap. We said there's Kala, that we are the level of Kala. Why? Because we're Yidden, and we have these two levels of relating to Hashem. We have the first all-consuming relation of Killian, that everything by us is completely nothing, and Hashlachai Minega, that you throw away everything so you could cleave to Hashem. And then the second one is that I am me, and I have what I want, and so I try to have a relationship with Hashem. I try to love Hashem. And that means that I need to be bottled, I need to be included by Hashem. It's all going to know. The Alter Rebbe is connecting this to the two levels in Kriya Shema. We say Shema Yisrael, and you need to have Mesiras Nefesh, Limsa Nafshi Be'echad. You throw away everything, and then you have the second level of Yahavta. And the Alter Rebbe asks, how do you go from Limsa Nafshi Be'echad, that you're completely giving everything away, to, okay, I'm me, and I have Nafshecham, Levavcha, Nafshecham, Eidecha, I have all of these things, and I'm going to still try to love Hashem with all of the things that I have in this world, even it's me and Yesh Mish'ayev. How do you go from I have nothing other than my desire for Hashem to I'm me and I have my life and I still want to relate to Hashem? How do you go from everything to that limitation in a sense? The Alter Rebbe says the way that we get here is this is why we interrupt between the two levels of Mesiras Nefesh. And the way that we interrupt is we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchus Adonai L'Vad. This is Bechinas Yichud Tata. It's the level of Yichud Tata Shem Bechinas Malchusei. Nisavu Kol Nevar Me'ayin Liesh, because from the level of Hashem's Malchus, He created all creation, something from nothing. The feature Ein Melech L'Yom, because there's no king without a nation. Hashem wants there to be this division in a sense. He wants there to be a world where we're actually people and we're separate, we're distinct. So Zehu Makir Kiyum B'Chayis Kol Nevar. This is the source of the standing and the vitality of all creation. And it says that besides for me there is no God. Besides for me, that is to say that besides for Hashem, there's nothing else. But Hashem Himself, with the name Avaya, it refers to Hashem Himself. It refers to Elikim. That Hashem Himself, Avaya, the source, the vitality, etc., is also the Elikim, the Tzimtzum and the Halam V'Hester. That it contracts and it conceals the Ein Sof, which has no limit. So that you can have creation in a way of yesh, that you have an existence. Like a turtle, a grasshopper, what Kamsa actually translates to is a little bit of a controversy, but ultimately like there's animals and they have shells that protect them. And the animal that has the shell that protects it, it's not this thing. It's not that the shell is something that it buys in Walmart. It's born with a shell, it grows the shell, ultimately it covers over itself, but it still is part of itself. This is not the case with Yichudei Law. That you don't have all of these considerations, that you have a world, and a concealment. Yichudei Law is saying simply, there's nothing besides for Hashem. This is the answer for how you have the love of Mesiras Nefesh and Echad. This is through the fact that you make the interruption of Baruch Shem Kvod Malchus Adonai L'Vad. There's a similar answer to this in the Ramaskal of Kislev in a slightly different way. And Maven understands that it goes up in one way. After the share, I believe I have notes on this. I could check. I believe I wrote the notes on this. But anyhow. These two levels are called in Kabbalah Shchinta Ilah, Shchinta Tata, the upper dwelling and the lower dwelling. These are the two levels of Kala Shir HaShirim that it says it refers to in Shir HaShirim. Shekol Shir HaShirim Davra Beis V'Chinas Kala and Al Kedua. The whole Shir HaShirim refers only to these two levels of Kala as it's known. I did actually look into this, and I still need a little bit of a bureau of what this is. But it seems like just in general, he's saying that you have these two Lashonis of Kala, and maybe they're both in every time that it says Kala, it's referring to both of these levels. But regardless, ki beis ba'amim namar v'nishna Shir HaShirim achiv b'shem v'chasam v'kala, because 2 times in Shir HaShirim it discusses the love or the cherishedness, the belovedness that you have between a chasam and kala. V'reim is a beis b'chinas kala anal, and it refers to these 2 levels of kala. I'm pardes shachas perik gimel me'inyan shkinte love shkinte tato v'zer kia reish parshas bereshis gabi mashkos v'sham v'zehar mashe shana chulu uf knesset Yisrael chulu v'ay mashkos v'firish knesset Yisrael l'kamam v'dibur maskal shishin hema melochis v'shem hamishnas chesidim v'ay mashkos parshas tzaveh dibur maskal zocher esis sh'aslach al-molei chulu v'ay m'sefer ha-mitzvahs simin kufn vav v'ay mechavin hakol echotum. The intention, it's all aligned. It's all referring to 2 levels of Likutei Torah and Likutei Torah. It's possible that there's another level to be gleaned in this, but in general, what we're saying over here about Kriya Shema is that you have these 2 levels of Likutei Torah and Likutei Torah, and it aligns with the 2 levels of Kala, Lashon Killian and Lashon Kolsa.
Thank you very much.